Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Ad America TV. Back with me, Maya Trainer. I'm one of the e-guides at Ad America, and we welcome our audience joining us online. We truly hope that you are doing well and staying safe amidst this outbreak. Well, anyway, for those of you who are first-timers here, hi, welcome to Ad America TV for the first time. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center. Our mission is to provide a space for young generations of Indonesia to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a solely digital platform so you can enjoy our program from the comfort of your own home and help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment box below, and our panelists will answer them later in the seminar. And for our friends here who are joining us through Zoom, there are a couple of features that you can use to actively participate in the seminar. You can use the raise hand section to ask your questions with your video on, or you can also use the chat box section whenever you wanted to say hi to the other participant and also the panelist as well. But please keep in mind to use these features wisely, right? Cool. Now today we will be having a discussion about the Introduction to IELTS Part 2 out of 3. But as per usual, before we begin, we are going to have a social media quiz. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. The question is, how many days does it take to get the results of paper-based IELTS? A, 7 days, B, 10 days, C, 13 days, or D, 21 days. I will repeat the question one more time. Listen carefully. How many days does it take to get the results of paper-based IELTS? A, 7 days, B, 10 days, C, 13 days, or D, 21 days. You can participate in this quiz through our social media comment section, and stay tuned till the end of this program to find out if you got the answers right. Now, one more thing before we begin, please don't hesitate to take a selfie and capture this moment and share through your social media and let everyone know that you are having a great time with Ad America. And don't forget to tag us on Instagram at ATAmerica. And now, without further ado, please welcome our speaker for today, Jonathan Stevens, IELTS expert, British Council, Indonesia.
I am muted and my video is on. Hope you can all hear me now. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's very positive, and I think in this time of COVID, it's really helpful to hear great positive words like that. Now, I imagine that a lot of you have felt like this year has just kind of stopped for you, and your plans of working or studying abroad have been put on hold. But let's be positive about it. Come on, the IELTS is going to be your passport. If you can get the right score, the right band in IELTS, then that'll be your passport towards continuing your hopes and dreams and ambitions of study and more in a few months' time. And it's going quickly. The time is going quickly. Okay, what I'm going to do today is focus on the IELTS writing part of the IELTS test. Now, as I'm sure you remember from last week, there are 4 parts to the IELTS: the listening, the reading, the writing, and speaking. And I think it's only fair to say that perhaps the writing is the least favorite part of the IELTS exam. Some people do find it challenging. What I want to do with you today is to give you some tips that will help you get that band score you want, or the band score you need. So I'll be running through the task 1. You know, the IELTS task, the writing is in 2 parts. The task 1 and task 2. I'll take you through task 1, take you through task 2, and hopefully at the end of it, you'll feel absolutely ready to take IELTS as soon as we can. I'll go on to share screen there. Just one moment. There we are. And share. And let's go. I'm trying to. There we go. Slideshow. from the beginning, and away we go. All right, so IELTS writing, what do you need to know? As I just mentioned, there are two parts to the IELTS writing. After you've done the listening part and the reading part, it's on to the writing, and you'll be faced with something called Task 1 and Task 2. Now, what's the difference between Task 1 and Task 2? Okay, try and keep this in mind. The aim of the Task 1 is to describe something. Now, that could be a chart, it could a pie chart, a line chart, or it could be a graph, it could be a map, or it could be a process. But you just have to describe it. And the purpose of the writing task 2 is to discuss. That's when you get to give your ideas. Okay, the word totals are different. Task 1, they're asking you to aim for 150 words, and task 2 is 250 words. That's what you're aiming for. And we recommend a time limit. Take about 20 minutes for task 1 and about 40 minutes to task 2, and that fills up the hour. And for both parts of the writing test, you'll be given a score, and then that score will be averaged together. And that score goes from 0 to 9. 0 is, I don't know what you have to do to get 0, but you won't be getting that, don't worry. And 9 is absolutely fantastic. Probably what you're looking at is a band score of something like 6 or 6.5, or maybe probably maximum 7. That's the score you want to get. If you're familiar with the scores, what you don't want to get is something below 6. So that's what we're going for there. So how do you get that score that you want? On the back of the traditional IELTS writing paper, you'll see a funny little box there with things saying do not write here and so on. And there are 4 boxes there. It says TA, CC, LR, and GRA. And that stands for, they'll give you a mark. Did you answer the question? Is your answer organized? Is your vocabulary okay? And is your grammar okay? Now, you'll probably find it not too difficult to get to 6 for the first one, 6 for the second, and 6 for the third. But watch out for the grammar, because if you get 5 on the grammar, when they put those marks together, that doesn't add up to 6 overall. It works out to be 5.5, and that's the score you don't want to get. So how do you avoid getting that? I'm going to give you some tips, and hopefully they'll help. Here we go. Right, we'll look at a question in a moment, but before we do that, first thing you have to do is summarize the information in the graph or the chart or whatever it is. Don't describe every detail. Now, you remember that it's 150 words. You couldn't describe every detail, even if you wanted to. The next one is super important. You're probably going to write 2 paragraphs, and the first paragraph gives an overview of the chart or graph or whatever. So, and that is important. If you don't do that, then your mark will go down. So a little overview of what it's about. And how do you get a 6? Please don't think that you've got to use really complicated, advanced grammar and the most complicated expressions and vocab that you can use. You don't need that, believe me. Your focus should be don't make basic grammar mistakes. Now, I know what some of you must be thinking out there. Well, come on, Mr. IELTS person. It's easy for you to say, don't make grammar mistakes. No, come on, I don't like grammar. Don't worry about that. Look, what I mean is those little mistakes that everyone makes. Oh, you forgot the S. Singular or plural? Should it be is or should it be are? Ooh, the wrong tense. You jump tense from present to past or past to present. Oh, you forgot the. It's more a matter, if you like, of editing and checking rather than, really advanced, super complicated grammar. So don't worry about that. And here's a funny one, but try to keep your sentences to between 15 to 18 words. That sounds like quite a lot, but in fact it isn't. And what happens is a lot of people do tend to try to write long sentences, 25, 30 words. And believe me on this one, it stresses the grammar. The grammar mistakes will pop up as you link those ideas. So keep it short. And hey, come on, don't worry about this. Look, you've got 150 words to write for task one. Now, 15 words, come on, that's only 9 or 10 sentences. Now, can you do that? I'm sure you can. Let's have a look at an example question. All right. Well, that's a lot to take in, isn't it? So there's the instruction at the top. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. Okay. And here's the description. The 2 pie charts below show changes in world population by region between 1900 and 2000. Okay, so that means it's a change over time. Okay. And here's the instruction they have on all of the task one questions. Summarize the information by choosing and reporting the key features and make any relevant comparisons. Okay, done. Oh, there you are, write at least 150 words. So there we are. On this side, we've got the world population in when? 1900, 1.6 billion. And here we've got the world population in 2000, 6 billion. Oops, it's increased, hasn't it? Yeah, so a big increase. What are we looking at here? Oh, here we've got different regions. And here it looks like Asia gets more space there, a little bit less space there. All right, so that's our job, is to describe that in 10 sentences or so. 10 sentences, 2 paragraphs. How are we going to do that? Let's have a look. Answering the question. Good thing to do when you answer the question is always to start with a subject. What is it you are trying to talk about or describe? All right, there's the question again. And here's the first thing not to do. Please, 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 and I'm sorry if you're speaking locally. I know that here in Jakarta, people do love to give a nice, sweet introduction to the writing, and they'll say something like, the world has so many people nowadays, and it seems that cities like Jakarta are getting busier every day. Yep, but remember, your job with task one is to describe. So a general thing like that, or just using your imagination, doesn't work, not needed. So what should you do instead? Hey, do be careful. Remember that instruction at the top, the 2 pie charts below show changes? Hey, perhaps you could copy and paste that one? No, don't do that. But what you can do is use those words in the instruction here and change maybe 2 or 3 or 4 words there, like this. Okay, the 2 pie charts. Okay, that becomes the 2 diagrams. Forget about below. Show becomes illustrate. Changes global population. And there you are. There's your first sentence. And remember, it's an overview. Introduce it with, overall, there was a huge increase in the number of people in the world. And that is about 26 words, as I counted those yesterday. 26 words. That's your first paragraph done. And away you go. You're ready for the second paragraph. And you can do that, can't you? That is a fine beginning. That is very doable. When I say you can do it, I really mean it. You can. All right, let's go on. Right, now you're on to talking about the details. Like I say, I love talking about starting with start with a subject, then go straight on to a verb. Now the subject might be, oh, well, they said the main points. So let's have a look at that again on the right. They said the main points. Well, that big area there, that looks like Asia. Oh, maybe we should start off talking about Asia then. Right. Wrong. Think about it. Think about it again. It's not really Asia that got smaller. Oh, let's try the Asian population. Still not quite there, is it? Because remember, the world population went up a lot, so everybody's population increased. So that wouldn't be right. Some of you are thinking, I know, you're thinking percentages. Yeah, and that's the one. That's the subject. That's your beginning. The Asian percentage of the world population. Now, I don't want anybody to say, oh, that's too long or anything. Yeah, it's long, but it's accurate. If you want to make it shorter, then you can talk about the Asian percentage or the Asian proportion. And then get that subject down there, follow up as soon as you can with a verb. Now, just hold on to these simple words for increases and decreases, rise, fall, increase, decrease, go up, go down, remain the same. That's all you need. Don't forget, most of the time with task one, they're going to be in the past. This one's all in the past, finished in 2000. So don't use the present, except for the graph show. Don't use the present tense for describing the data. You don't need that. You don't need the present perfect. Simple past all the way. You can do that? Yeah, of course you can. And if you want to vary a little bit, then get that pattern learnt properly as well. There was a rise or a fall or an increase in the European population, percentage of population over time. Okay, and there you go. That's and looking back, because I've been in Indonesia a long time, 20 years, and in the past I used to mark many IELTS writings. The kind of errors or popular mistakes, as we sometimes say, you don't want to make would be, let's start at the left here. It is shown by the chart that there's nothing really wrong with that, but keep it simple. The chart shows. Second one, there were some countries increased. Some countries increased, and that's going to be subject, verb, object, or other thing, not two main verbs there. Here's one, especially for Indonesia, I guess. Regions that had. That's, again, not really a mistake, but I'm sure some of you, when you're writing in English, you're going to be thinking things like regions yang di, and that's great style in Indonesian. In English, unfortunately, you get a very long beginning to the sentence, and it can stress out the grammar. Keep it simple. Some regions had. If there's something else you want to say, divide that into two sentences. Now, remember what I said a moment ago about baby mistakes, basic mistakes. It depends on, please. Check for these. Put that, you know this. And next one, a slightly decreased. Sometimes I wish I had $1 for every time I'd seen that mistake. You had that class back in high school. It's a slight. When do you say slight? When do you say slightly? Ask yourselves, do you know that? So are you sure of it? So ask yourself, and if you don't know, then go and find your old grammar book and check it out. It should be either a slight decrease, noun, or X decrease slightly. The slight becomes an adverb. And this sounds super mean, but if I saw two mistakes like that, I would very often award 5 for grammar. So do be careful on that one. It's not on May, it's not on 1900, it's in May, in 1900. And last but not least, everybody, oh, what is wrong with the world today? I want to study in the UK or the USA. What happened to capital letters? I know we're all using our phones so much and like that, and we don't bother with capitals. But trust me, in the IELTS test, we want to see our old-fashioned capital letters. Capital I for when you're talking about yourself. UK gets capitals. English, please, that gets a capital. You know this already, so do try to not forget it when we go. All right, so what do we got next? So what I've been saying to you is go for nice, simple, clear sentences. Subject, verb, object's not really here, but other stuff at the end. If you follow that, you'll end up with sentences like this. Africa's percentage of the world population increased sharply, the Latin percentage rose, and so on. Same kind of thing there. What's wrong with those sentences? Nothing really, but we haven't really glued them together. We've got to kind of link them together to make for a smooth bit of reading. That's what I meant when I said good sentences or a good paragraph. So what you can do is use linking words. And let's just move anything over there. So overall, comma, most of them, I call them plug and play words. You've got your simple sentence, you plug and play overall, comma, on the other hand, comma, however, comma, it is interesting to know, no comma. Those kind of words will make your writing read smoothly. There's a couple of slightly trickier ones like whereas, while, or although, and they're best in the middle of a sentence. It's to do with subordinate clauses and so on. But many of these are very easy to use. And I can absolutely guarantee that will get you a simple approach like that will get you a 6, 6.5, maybe even a 7 for your task 1. Again, you can ask yourself, can you do that? I'm sure you can. I'm absolutely sure you can. So just before we close on task 1, these are some samples. Don't be frightened. You're never going to get all this. These are just samples I've put together of things you might have to describe there. You've got, on the left, we've got a couple of line charts. Here's the process. There's another pie chart. There's a map. But don't forget, whatever it is you have to describe, 2 paragraphs, overview, 150 words, 10 or 11 sentences, keep it simple, put in some linking words, and you are there. It is totally doable. If you do have any time, left over, then you probably already know your favorite mistakes when the missing s, the singular instead of plural or plural instead of singular. Use a couple of minutes to the end to check for those little errors. That is way better than writing pages and pages and pages. If you've got to 150 words, you've done what you're supposed to do. Don't bother to write anymore. If you've got some spare time, use it for checking. Yeah, come on. You're saying all right to that, aren't you? But yes, in fact, you can do it. Let's move on to task 2. Just a quick test for you. What was it? The first one, task 1, was describe, and this one, discuss. Yeah. So what are you going to discuss? Let's have a look. Here's a sample task 2 question. Let's take a moment to look on this. Now, just before I go on, I think you've all received a handout that goes with this talk, and okay, I can't talk about everything, but if you read through the handout, it will give you some more background details on what I'm saying. So apologies if I'm having to go through fairly quickly on this, but the handout will be there to give you more time to study peacefully on your own. So here we go. Sample task 2 question. Writing task 2. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Remember, it's 20 minutes for the first one, 40 for the second. Write about the following topic. People move to new cities or new countries more than ever before. I guess they do. What challenges do they experience? What strategies are there to help them meet these challenges? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. And it says write about 250 words. Now you might think, oh dear, that sounds complicated. What shall I do? It says challenges, experience, strategies. Don't worry too much. It's very simple. Challenges, it's just a fancy word for problems, isn't it? And strategies, you know the word that goes with problems, solutions. And you'll find that all task 2 task 2s tend to go like that. It'll be problems and solutions, advantages, disadvantages, and you can build your essay around that. I'll show you in a minute. There's another example there. Some people say it's impossible to live comfortably in large cities. Okay, let's do a countdown on this. We'll start with 10 tips. We'll go from number 10 to number 1. All right, so the first one, the key idea is discuss. This means that you present 2 sides of the topic, and they might be for and against, or advantages or disadvantages, causes and effects, problems and solutions. Okay. So what does that mean in terms of paragraphs? I'll tell you. Look, of course, you can write as many paragraphs as you want, but your job is just to do the exam. It's to do the exam, isn't it? So you're not trying to write some wonderful, piece of literature. What I recommend you do is use a 4-paragraph structure, so you don't have to waste time planning. 4 paragraphs. You know what the first one is? Introduction. You know what the last one is? Conclusion. And in the middle, you've got one side for number 2, and for number 3, you've got the other side. And that gives you a really great framework. So you have to say some general things for that introduction, and a couple of points on one side and a couple of points on the other side, and wrap it up with a conclusion. And that's the one you can probably begin, in my opinion, comma, or in conclusion, comma. All right, now I'm sure if I could hear some of you ask questions or something, you'd be saying, oh yeah, I never enjoyed writing when I was at school, and that was in Bahasa, and oh gosh, when I write in English, I don't like it at all, and oh, it's always difficult finding ideas. Don't worry about that. It's really, I promise you, not such a big deal. All you need is just a couple of ideas on one side, maybe one or two advantages here, and a couple of advantages on the, disadvantages on the other side. So, but I've got to write out 250 words. Yeah, I know, but even just with 2 ideas on one side, 2 on the other side, by magic, almost, it seems, you will get to 250. It is absolutely doable. Let's go on. Tip number 8. It's always going to be a current issue. They're not going to be talking about some situation in the past. it's going to be a now issue. So that makes things easier for you. Your main tense will be the present simple. Okay, so stay in the present simple. That's your default. Don't forget the S when it's needed. Of course, you can go into the past if you really need to, or a different tense, but you need a good reason to. Otherwise, present simple all the way. Maybe a present continuous, once or twice, but it's a current situation. Oh boy, here we go. Tip number 7. For the first paragraph, you can do that same trick again. You can play around a little bit with the words in the instruction. So what was that one? People move abroad, go to study in other countries. Okay, many people now choose to work and study abroad. Now, do you ever get that feeling that when you're writing, you come up with that first sentence and then your mind goes blank? It happens to all of us. The way out, just think of an example. So begin your next sentence, for example, comma, or for instance. And then you can, many Indonesians now prefer to study in the USA because of the, whatever like that. When you think examples are pretty easy to write about. On to number 6. You're still stuck on generating sentences? Here's the solution. Think of people and everyday examples when you write a topic. Compare the following topics. Which would be easier to write about? Okay, let's say, for instance, I'll say to you, right, I want you to write something about urban problems. Oh boy, you'd be thinking, oh, wow, where do I begin? All right, well, don't write about urban problems. Write about traffic. Pretty similar thing. It's a big urban problem. Still too big. Think about traffic in Jakarta. Well, it's not so bad nowadays, is it? But it's usually pretty bad. Mostly it gets easier to think of examples as you get more specific. And if I ask you to write about your journey to school or work every day, you're going to say, well, I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, usually, and I have to leave the house by 6 o'clock, because if I don't. So that's the way to break through, to get nice, manageable sentences. Talk about, base things on everyday experience. Don't make it too abstract. Let's go on. Tip number 5, a little bit the same. Be concrete, not abstract in your writing. And I know that some of you out there, maybe you're government research workers or you do university research. Very often you have to read really heavy, complicated things. Well, and you might think, oh gosh, I've got to write sentences like, what was it about moving to cities or countries? Transmigratory policies in previous years have often resulted in major population movements in various countries. Wow, you don't have to write to that level. It's all about communication and communicating clearly. People often choose to move to another country to obtain a higher standard of education. That is way easier to write, and it's more than good enough. Follow that up with an example or two. And here we go, number 4. Or to break through again, use examples from your own experience. What challenges do people have in a foreign country? Well, you think, oh, my friend's in Australia. My friend doesn't like the food in Australia. Well, you can't write, my friend doesn't like the food in Australia. That would not be suitable for an academic exam. But you can change that to something like, some people may find that they dislike the food in a foreign country. It's the same idea, but in a slightly more formal way. And if you do that, you'll be fine. Number 3, there are those words again, the plug and play ones. Put them in at the beginning of the at the beginning of the sentence, and your writing will be smooth and it won't affect your grammar or anything. Number two, here's an important one for you. Questions are often like this in IELTS. They'll make a statement: university students should pay the full cost of their studies because a university education benefits individuals rather than, society as a whole. Then they'll ask, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Well, here's the news. You don't have to 100% agree or 100% disagree. The best place for your opinion is in the middle. So when you get to that last paragraph, you might say something like, in conclusion, comma, families of students should pay the full cost of their studies, full stop. However, comma, the government should be prepared to give help or assistance to low-income families. So you haven't totally agreed, you haven't totally disagreed, you're in the middle there, and that is, for me, that's the best place to be. All right, I'm coming out. No doubt you're wondering what is the final tip. The final tip is use the Tango verbs. Some, if not all of you, must be thinking, what the heck is that all about? These Tango verbs they are a bunch of 10 or 12 verbs that are absolutely great for using in the middle of your task 2, for putting, describing one side or the other side. Why are they called Tango verbs? Because there's a very, very silly story which we're going to read together, and hidden in that story are these Tango verbs. So just bear with me a little bit and we will go through this story. Here's the intro. The strange island of Tango. Have you ever been to a remote island? I'd love to ask you that. Maybe some of you are on remote islands at the moment. Well, keep safe. Did you enjoy staying there, or do you enjoy staying there? You will hear a story, which I'm going to read, about the island of Tango. The story is about the inhabitants of Tango who've given up worrying and working more or less completely. Can this be true? The answer to that is absolutely not. Listen and answer these questions. What effect did the drug have on people's minds? Well, what sort of story is this? What effect did it have on the country's economy? What did the government do? And why weren't they successful? And what did the government do in the end? And why was this a better solution? Okay, some of you might be thinking, hang on, what is this crazy story he's about to read to us? Hold on, there are some great words that are going to really improve your task 2 writing. Let's go with it. Here we are. The inhabitants of the island of Tango, a small island in the Pacific, discovered a plant that contained a powerful drug. This drug made it more difficult for them to think rationally. It stopped them worrying about the future and enabled them to forget all their problems. At the same time, it made it much easier for them to relax and enjoy themselves. So much so indeed that the whole population of the island stopped working and spent all their time singing and dancing and looking at the sea. This is ridiculous. Unfortunately, of course, this had a very bad effect on the country's economy, and people began to run short of food. Just a little bit more. And this, however, didn't discourage the people from taking the drug. The Prime Minister made speeches on the TV warning them about the drug, but nobody took any notice. Before long, the economy was in ruins. This forced the government to make the drug illegal. But that only made the situation worse. The law couldn't prevent the people from taking the drug, which grew wild all over the island. On the contrary, the fact that the drug was illegal merely encouraged people to take it. Eventually, the government found a better solution. They exported the drug. Oh, what a ridiculous story. They exported the drug to other countries. This saved the islanders from having to work more than one day a week and allowed them to spend the rest of their time sitting in the sun without a care in the world. What has that got to do with your task 2? You're about to find out. Here we go. Hiding in that story, and it's on your handout that hopefully you've received, there are, how many is it? 10 words or phrases. Allow, enable, encourage, force, stop, prevent, discourage, save, make it easier, make it more difficult. Great words. Now, hold on before you think, well, I know those words already. They're a little bit tricky to use. Let's go on. Now, I don't think we have time really to go through this. Now, I strongly suggest that you take the handout and maybe read the story a couple of times more, and then you can change the sentences which are given on the next slide. Normally you'd be listening to this on the second, just here it says, don't forget to put the Tango verb in the past simple tense and be sure to complete the sentence. The first has been done for you. There you go. There's the first sentence. When they took the drug, it was more difficult for them to think rationally. Take one of those Tango words. The drug made it more difficult for them to think rationally. Okay, let's have a look at the other ones. These are on your handout. Let me repeat. When they took the drug, they didn't worry about the future. The drug stopped them, and you're going to find out what the answer is. Number 3, the drug enabled them to. Number 4, made it easier for them. Did not discourage the people. The economic crisis forced the government. The new law didn't prevent, and so on. And here are the answers, all on your handout. Made it more difficult for them to think rationally. Stopped them worrying about the future. Enabled them to forget. Made it easier for them to relax and enjoy themselves. Did not discourage people from taking the drug. Forced the government to take some action. Didn't prevent people from taking the drug. Encouraged people to take the drug. Saved the islanders from having to work. And this allowed them to sit in the sun all day long. Hold on just a little minute. If you study the handout, you'll find out what the snag is. Have a look at this. Made it more difficult for them. Okay, stop them worrying, ing. Enabled them to forget. Made it easier for them to relax. Discourage people from taking. This one encouraged people to take. Forced the government to take. Prevent people from taking. And then save the islanders from having to work, allow them to sit. If I say, can you remember when it's ing? Can you remember when it's to? You'll say, oh, I'll try. Don't worry, it's pretty easy. It goes in a pattern like that. Enable, allow, encourage, force someone to do something. Make it easier, make it more difficult for someone to do something. Stop, prevent, save someone from, ing. And that one you do have to remember, discourage someone from doing something. Now, if I say to you all, do you think you can remember some or most or all of those? You're going to say, yeah, that seems all right. But how does that help? How does that help with task 2? Have a look. Whoops. Let's take an example of package tours. Aren't we all dreaming of package tours now? To Bali on a family package, or do you prefer traveling independently? There are two sides to it, just like a task 2 question. Here's a discussion between some people, and they're presenting the two sides, but they use those Tango words. Package tours enable people to travel abroad cheaply. Ah, yes, but they discourage people from being adventurous because everything's organized. On the other hand, they make it easier for single people to make friends on holiday, but they force you to spend your holiday with people you may not like. Think about it. Those make really nice, smooth, quality sentences. Look at the first one, for instance. Package tours enable people. Of course, you can write something like, with a package tour, you can travel abroad cheaply. Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine. But isn't it better if you say something like, package tours enable people to travel abroad cheaply? So keep those Tango words in mind. And then for just about any topic you want to talk about, they're going to generate sentences for you. Let's have a look at a few topics here. Credit card, living in Jakarta. Oh, a credit card, good or bad? Having a credit card allows you to shop until you, what's the expression, drop? Instagram enables me to share my photos with my family or friends or plans. Living in Jakarta. Ooh, good or bad? It's both there, isn't it? Living in Jakarta forces us to spend a lot of time in traffic. Any celebrities out there? Is it good being a celebrity? I'm sure some people are going to say no. Being a celebrity makes it more difficult or whatever. Living with parents. How about that one? Living with parents is fantastic because it enables me to have access to a car and a refrigerator. Being married. Shout out to all the married people out. Being married is wonderful. Being married encourages us to work hard, perhaps, and so on. What I'm saying is, let's go back a little bit. Remember those Tango words. They're on your handout. Keep those in your mind. Remember the pattern on how to use them. And I promise you, start with a topic like this, plug in your Tango word, and you will have some really great sentences for paragraphs 2 and 3 of your task 2. There's a little bit more on the handout. I think that's all we've got time for the moment now. So let's hope this COVID thing is soon over. We can all progress with our plans to study abroad and so on. Follow these tips, practice, and I'm sure you'll be on track for a 7 or 8 or who knows, even a 9. And believe me, you really can do it. It is true. There you go. Thank you. Arya, are you there? Do you want to take over from me?
Hi. Yes, I'm here. Okay, John. Thank you very much for the presentation. I hope everyone find it useful and to help you success on your upcoming IELTS test. So we will continue to the Q&A session now. But before that, I would like to inform that this session today is part of the 3 series running at America. So this is the second one, and the third one will be on next week, the same day and same time, on Saturday at 2 p.m. Jakarta time. And we are going to discuss about the IELTS speaking from our IELTS expert, Calm Downs. So we've received several questions here, John, from the participants. Okay, the first one is from Triayu. So, do you have any advice on doing writing tests on the computer delivered IELTS? does it have any differences in terms of the format and the scoring?
No. Obviously, I mean, I recommend the computer IELTS writing for, if your writing is really not very good, then, you know, having a keyboard definitely helps. And that is something I did see in previous years. A lot of people do have awful handwriting, and if your writing is really difficult to read, it might well put the examiner in a bad mood. So that would be a good reason for using the computer-delivered IELTS. But there's no real difference. There is no difference really in terms of the task. There was a question: is it okay to use all capitals? Well, I wouldn't recommend that. I would just type normally. You know, at least if you use capitals and lowercase letters, if you use uppercase and lowercase, then at least people can see that you know how to use capital letters, which, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people seem to have forgotten. I hope that answers your question, does it?
Yeah. In terms of the scoring and the level of difficulty, are there any differences between the paper-based IELTS and computer-delivered IELTS for writing, John?
None at all. None at all, no.
Okay. So we have another question from Ayu. So she is asking if what tenses are you recommending for the writing test in IELTS?
The what verb tenses?
Yes.
Right. As I mentioned, for task 1, if it's a line graph or some sort of bar, if it's a line graph, then very often it's going to be past simple all the way. So just keep that in your mind. And if it's a process, some sort of industrial process, then it's going to be present tense all the way through. And if it's a map, there might actually be a variation there. But to talk about the classic one, the line graph, it's going to be past simple, except for the very first line is going to be something like the two line graphs show. That's going to be present because it's right in front of you, but the actual data on the graph is all going to be in the past. I really hope that helps, because I know a lot of people do struggle, you know, with keeping on track with the tenses. So I'm you know, a real tip for me would be make that decision right at the beginning of the writing. You know, what's going to be the main tense here, and stick to it unless you have a very good reason for changing. That'd be for task 1. Sometimes those graphs will talk about, the graph or the map will talk about something in the future, so watch out for that. If it's a comparison, if it's a comparison between two things, 2 bits of information, and there's no date, then you can assume that it's present tense. And like I said, for task 2, you know, just choose the present simple nearly all the way through. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John. We have another question from Sriyanto. So he found that the map diagrams is quite challenging, and how to tackle those questions quickly and effectively.
The overview, the first line of the instruction will, you can remodel that. The problem with the map, and I think this is a very good question. If you're not careful, then you can get into trouble with different tenses. You're going to be talking about present perfect. Sometimes you might begin a sentence with something like, let's say it's a map, by 1970, comma, Stapleford, name of town, had become, you know, you've got an extra tense there, which is best avoided. If you want to go for something clear and really clear and simple, there might be a map with 2 dates on it, maybe 1900, 1950, 2000 or something, and just say, begin in the same way each time. In 1900, something was past simple all the way. In 1950, it was, and avoid other tenses. It depends how confident you feel with jumping from using a past perfect, and maybe you might be tempted to use a present perfect if you're talking about the place now, but you can often simplify it by just strictly using past simple and then present in talking about the current situation. It's have a look at some of the examples. There are plenty available via the British Council, website, or via the books, and pick out the model answers which give you the simplest and clearest way to approach the problem. If it's any consolation, you've probably got something like a 1 in 10 chance of getting a map. But having said that, maybe you won't be so fortunate. It's doable. Don't panic. It really is okay. Another one, please.
Okay.
Thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, thank you, John. So we still have some questions here. So Diding asked, actually, is it okay if we make up a story in our writing, like it doesn't really happen?
My answer to that, thank you for, I think it's the first time I've ever been asked that question. For task 1, absolutely do not make up a story, please. Whatever you do, it's just describe what you see in front of you. For task 2, it says you can refer to your own experience. So you could put in a short example there, but even 250 words is not very much. So do try to stick to my format, please. Intro one side, the other side. No, don't have about 2 lines on everything else and 25 lines on your story. I'd say put in examples from your own life. 1 or 2 sentences on a story, but do keep on topic. Do you remember that TA thing that I was talking about for the first mark? That's saying, did you answer the question? So if it's a long story about something you've done, even if it's connected, a mean examiner might give you a lower mark for not for not keeping to the topic. So a little bit of your own experience, yes. A great big story. Sorry, I'm going to have to say no to that one.
Okay, John. Okay, thank you. So, Ayu is asking another question. So, can you share some tips for the process type of question on the task 1?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Number 1. Okay, let's start off. The first one, there are 2 kinds of process. You can have a natural process like rainfall, that kind of thing, or you can have some kind of mechanical, industrial, or sometimes like water treatment or process. It's more likely to be some kind of mechanical thing, if you like. And you look at that and you think, looks a bit hard. The trouble is, some people, when they look at the process, They'll think, oh, look, there's a lot of words. There's a lot of words on the diagram. That's great. Hey, this is wonderful. 3 words for my writing. Oh, they're so kind, aren't they? And they'll use those words directly in their task 1 answer. Keep with me a moment. This is good in one way. It gives you something. But what you will see on those process diagrams, there are no verbs there. It'll say something like production of chocolate, for instance, or combination of sugar and other ingredients. Let's say it's a chocolate, a chocolate factory thing, which is on the handout I've sent. And you will have to go from a word like production to making a passive verb like something is produced. And so on the diagram, first reaction, wow, there are words there. I can use those words. Second thought, uh-oh, I need verbs. And for a mechanical process, you probably want to use the passive. So you've got to make some passive verbs. So slow down, don't just copy. Be careful with those passive verbs. Use some linking words. And hey, I've got great news for you. I've just remembered, this is actually on the handout. There are the 3 basic tips that you need there for the process. So I won't say any more on that. They look a little bit scary, those diagrams, but they're really not too bad. And a bonus, it's present simple all the way. Present simple all the way on those, but maybe passive sometimes. Hope that helps. Have a look at the diagram if you're not sure. Okay. Yes, sorry, I mean the handout. Arya, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, John. Thank you. Arifa, I think she's already taken IELTS test before, and she got a 6 for writing, and she would like to improve her score to 8 or even 9. So what's your suggestion or your tips, your top tips on this actually?
It's actually, well, first I'd like to say a couple of things really. First, I'd like to say congratulations on getting a 6. That means that you're checking your work. You're not making those basic mistakes that I was talking about. It's actually easier to show people how to get a 6 than it is to show people how to get on unit 7 or 8 or even the dream of 9. Funnily enough, those Tango words I gave you, if your grammar is solid, those Tango words really do give you an upgrade to the task 2. I'm being serious about this. I'd say answer the question, use good connecting words and so on. On the vocab and general fluency of it, they really increase your chances of getting 6.5 or even 7. To go beyond 7, it's a challenge. You're going to have to do a little bit of your own research on this, but there is a thing called nominalization. Nominalization. There you go. And what that means is getting a little bit more abstract in your writing. So I was giving you examples just now on people prefer to, and you can avoid people, and you can say, you start with a more abstract way. People like schools, and you turn that around to say something like, education is popular. You see how you're going up a step towards being more abstract. If you search around on the net, you will find some suggestions on nominalization. You can get the idea of it. Beyond that, when people ask me how can I improve my writing, very often I'll say, do you read much? And unfortunately, these days, people will often say something like, no, I don't really like reading, but I prefer games and so on, that kind of thing. The people who do write better, they do get some input, from reading. So if you can find, and I'm not saying read a boring newspaper every day because it's good for you. The best way to improve, is to find reading stuff you really enjoy reading, the kind of thing where you can't stop reading. Yep, there are books like that. Find those sort of things, improve your reading, and gradually you'll find that has an effect on your writing. But that's a fairly long-term thing. But hey, come on. On the other hand, we all seem to have a bit more time free nowadays with this pandemic thing going on. So I'd suggest, push up the reading a bit and search around for normalization, make sure your grammar's okay. And who knows, maybe you can do it. I hope so. Good luck anyway.
Okay, John. I'm just asking in case if there's someone interested taking IELTS for migration purposes. So can you share a little bit about the general training writing test, John? What's the differences with the academic one?
The general training IELTS has two parts to it, just like the academic writing. There's a task 1 and a task 2. I'll start with the task 2 because that's easy. The task 2 is pretty much exactly the same as the academic task 2. A few years ago, sometimes I thought the general training, task 2 was a little bit simpler, but nowadays, as far as I can see, there's really no difference. That leaves us with task 1. Task 1 is a bit of a headache for general training because it asks you to write a letter. I don't know what you're all thinking. I mean, who the heck writes letters these days? Well, that's something you're supposed to do in either the task 1 general training. The kind of thing is something like you are renting an apartment and there's a problem with the kitchen. Write a letter to the owner of the apartment and tell him, and there'll be 3 little points there, this and this and this. Or it might be your friend is coming to your city next week and would like some advice on places to visit or somewhere to stay, that kind of thing. And there'll be, you should, and they'll give you 3 little suggestions. Suggest a place to stay, a place to visit, and so on. Now, your first reaction to that is, what the heck? I mean, surely if I have a problem with my apartment, I'm just gonna call the guy or send him a WhatsApp message. If my friends come in, I'll do the same. I'll give him a call on WhatsApp. But no, you've got to write an old-fashioned letter. I'm sure this is going to change soon, but there you go. The one and only tip I can give you, really, for making things a bit simpler, is to decide what kind of letter it is, who it is you're writing to. Is it something like a business, a more formal letter, or is it writing to a friend? If it's writing to a friend, you really haven't got much of a problem. You can just write as you speak, and that's fine. If it's writing in a more formal setting to a landlord or to a bank or something like that, then you do need to be aware or memorize a few little sentences, which are typical of slightly formal letters. It's all incredibly old-fashioned. Oh, one last thing. Have a look at some sample general training writing questions, and the task 1. You'll see there'll be a situation, and there'll be 1, 2, 3 bullet points there, and you absolutely must respond or cover those bullet points in your answer. Apart from that, you just had to decide, is it a formal thing or is it just a normal, friendly, chatty one? There you go. I hope that helps.
Okay, John, we have a very good question here from Abi. So he's asking about IELTS, as you know, is also catering for people that have special needs, right? Including if they are visually impaired. So can you explain, if you know, for the IELTS writing, what are the modifications for the question types for those that have issues with their visual?
That's something maybe you've got an answer for, Harry. I'm not exactly sure.
It's okay.
But I would certainly recommend taking the computer-based IELTS because it's going to be more, if you're visually impaired, there are more adaptations you can make with the screen. You can adapt the screen to make it more suitable or easier for answering. I'm afraid I can't really give a detailed, up-to-date answer on that. But one thing you can absolutely be sure of is that the British Council is really aware of any disabilities that people might have, and will do everything they can to try and support you. So you've got the same chance, as everybody else. I'm sure the British Council I know the British Council is absolutely committed to equal opportunity. So all the best with your writing.
Yes, Abi, actually, as an addition for what John has shared. So for people with disabilities, for example, if they have issue with their visuals or visually impaired, actually we provide a paper with the Braille mode so they can read the questions, and also we're using a special answer paper actually. So I think during the writing, the question will be in form of words instead of diagram. So it's going to be like that.
Yeah. But believe me, we the British Council will do everything they can to help. And it's a little bit off topic maybe, but you've just reminded me of every so often in the speaking test, I used to examine people who would have, problem. One person had a very bad stutter. It was really, really intense, but his English was absolutely, excellent. But of course, stutters, I suppose they happen in more stressful situations, and it was a stressful situation, so he did stutter a bit. But according to British Council instructions, I made absolutely no deduction for that. I marked him on how good his English was that he produced. We're on your side. We want you. We're here to help.
Okay, John. What if we are using an American style of English on IELTS? Will we get deduction on the score? For example, this is for just a simple example. If we are writing organized with a Z in American English, and it's using an S in the British English, right? So which one is your suggestion? Is it okay to use any kind of English?
I'm absolutely tempted to go into comic mode here, but using an S instead of a Z, or saying Z instead of Z, it's an automatic fail, but of course it's not like that at all. Don't worry at all. It's, the thing to remember is that the IELTS is an international speaking test. It's a global thing. We're totally tolerant of variations in spelling, the S's and the Z's and the colour, C-O-L, O-R, O-U-R, and all the other ones. It doesn't matter. I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because this is at America, but the American spelling, American culture is dominating the world through technology as well. How many arguments have I had with my computer about American spelling or British. In the end, we just give up and we let the computer do what it wants to do. No, absolutely no deductions for that. You know, British English, American English, Australian English, South African English. It's all absolutely fine. So, absolutely promise you, no deductions there. Spell, color, any way you like. And funny, okay, a little rider on that, if you want something extra, is that if you look in the Oxford English Dictionary, then, which is very British, of course, there is actually, they say both S and Z or Z, both are acceptable. So there you go. So no worries there. Arya, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Okay, John. Before we close today's session, can you share your 5 top tips for IELTS writing, John?
5. It's got to be 5. It's got to be 5, has it? I'm going to do these in reverse order. Just to recap. Keep it simple. Really, actually, that goes for the speaking as well. Don't go in there, as already mentioned, thinking, oh, right, oh, no, what was that advanced phrase? What was that one? How does it go? Not only do they, and you have to turn the verb around. Yeah, I'm going to use that one. That will get me a good mark. Oh, what was that word? I'm not sure what that word was. The other, I'll try it. It was a good one anyway. Don't think like that. You're not trying to impress. The IELTS is all about communication, meaning, are you going to survive speaking and writing in that target country? It's about clear communication. Does that count as one? Number 2 is that
yes,
you do focus on being simple, keeping it clear and simple. That's got a double benefit. You know, it's easier to write and it's easier to understand. If you missed what I said about avoiding longer sentences, I did mean it. I did mean keep to under 15 or 18 words. If I expand a bit on that, some people are going to write like 30, 35 words. They think, oh, here I go. Right, I'm really writing now. Like that. And why do people want to write 35 or 40 words in a sentence? It's because they've got 2 or 3 ideas. I promise you that sentence is going to be more accurate and easier to read and generally better if you split it, if you keep on 1 idea per sentence, split it up, and that will really help. I think that counts as 2. All right, here's another one then. Experience with lots of students and candidates over the years has shown me that some people, they love to begin sentences like this. In this era of globalization, it can be clearly seen that because of the factors which, and you know what I think? When I see people writing like that, I think they don't really know what they want to say. And sure enough, sometimes they'll start a sentence and then they'll hope to get an idea at the end of it. That comes back to what I was saying. Start with the subject, go on to a verb, take it from there. Don't come up with these fancy, complicated phrases. Another way to look at that, this might count as number 4, is you know, sometimes when you write a sentence, you think, here we go, and you look at the sentence, you think it's okay, and you think, maybe it's a bit short, maybe I should add something else. And you think for half a minute, and you think, I know, I'll put a comma there. Think, oh yeah, and then you add something to it. Very often those sentences will have mistakes in them. The 2 parts of the sentence, because you wrote with a gap in the middle, will not connect together very well. So, you know, full stop or comma, just put a full stop there. Remember those linking words and everything will still be all right. I think I might be up to 5 now. The last one, yeah, let's recycle those Tango verbs then. Those Tango verbs, they're almost like a song. When they get into your mind, you'll find yourself using them all the time. So this makes 6, but have a look at the handouts that you sent. If you didn't get it, I'm sure At America will send it you again. But that has got some great stuff for your writing, I promise you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So really, this one is final question from Fina. So which part of the test do you think most Indonesians find it challenging when taking IELTS? Is it speaking, writing, reading, or listening?
Well, let me tell you a huge secret, but it's not a secret really. I'd say number 1 is the writing. You might ask, why the writing? The reasons I hear are because people say that, I don't want to be negative here, but people say that they don't get to practice enough writing in Indonesian schools. I'm never sure what that means, but that might be one reason. Number 2, with the writing, here's something, it's a general tip for everybody. Let's just take a moment to explain. Especially nowadays, here in Indonesia, when students and candidates and everyone speak English, they speak English pretty well. That's a big shout out to everybody in Indonesia. Your accent is normally fine. Your speaking is getting better by the year. Everybody's saying this. What's not happening though is the writing is not improving. The writing is not improving at the same rate. So it seems like people speak better than they write. Now, why would that be? It's an interesting question. If I was a more academic person, I might study it for a few years. But I think what happens is that people speak naturally because of the internet, because of American movies, because. But when people come to write, they've got that little bit of time to think about it. And in that little bit of time, people might translate a bit. And that's where I think you get the old mistakes coming through again. So students in Indonesia definitely do speak better than they write. That might be because of translation. To cover the other things, the speaking, naturally, people, we all get a bit nervous when we have to speak in front of other people, normal enough. Try and relax when you go into the speaking. Again, just like the writing, don't try to impress people. Don't try to go into that, I'm going to show off, just take it easy. Here's a little secret though on the last 2, the listening and the reading. I'm sure some of you are thinking about IELTS courses and IELTS training and this, that, and the other. The listening and reading, that's something you can improve all by yourself. You don't need a teacher or a trainer or anybody. You don't need to pay for a course for the listening and reading. That's something you can do on your own. There are plenty of tests available. Go and access some and practice on your own, and I promise you your score will improve. For speaking, watch lots of movies, and because we're in At America, watch lots of American movies. They're still the best. And for the writing, if you can find someone to give you a few tips and feedback, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay,
John. Final question or the final question?
Final tips. How to manually count the writings on IELTS, John? Any tips?
There is one tip, and you use this thing we call a finger, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And unbelievably, in the days when I used to do the writing, you're going to ask, did the examiners really count every word? unfortunately, we did. And no, we never found a quick way. We never found a quick way to count the words. The closest you can get, if you don't want to waste time on counting the words, is just take an average of, usually it's about 10 or 12 words per line. Check that on a couple of lines, and you'll see that, so what's it going to be? You want about 20 lines, 10 lines, 10 or 12 lines for task 1, 10 or 12 lines, 20 odd lines for task 2. Yeah, I mean, do some practices, see with your writing approximately how many words you have per line, but you'll get the idea of what's enough. But I wouldn't like to waste time, counting the words. Just make sure you've got 250, 260 for task 2, 150, 160 for task 1, and you'll be fine.
Okay, sorry, John, but we still get another question here from the Helia. Okay, is it okay to use abbreviation to decrease of limitation words?
What? Sorry.
Is it okay to use abbreviation to decrease the word limitation?
Well, normally you don't really want, you want to produce more words, not fewer words. So if you're wondering, could you put etc. or something, put and the rest. Oh, here's a little tip for everybody. Don't write don't. What? No, instead of writing don't or isn't or couldn't, write do not, is not, does not, could not. Two advantages there. Number one, it sounds more formal and more academic. Number two, it counts as 2 words, not 1. So there you go. It's a win-win situation there. Usually the problem, the questions we get are the other way around. How can I make sure I write enough words? I can never think of enough words, and so on. If it's task 2, then think of examples. Examples are the solution. There. Begin a sentence, for example, comma, and then you'll think of something. Something there. So that's all on that one, I'm afraid. Yep.
Okay, thank you, John. So I think that is the end of the question and answer session. Thank you very much for the super tips. I also thank for everyone that joining today. Don't forget to register for the IELTS Part 3 next Saturday. We're going to discuss about the speaking tips. You can just scroll up the chat box. It's the link is already shared by Santika, or you can visit at America if you miss it. Okay, so that's all from us. Thank you very much for joining in. Over to Maya.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Stevens and Bapak Arya. That was a very insightful session. We hope to see you again next time. Now, the rest of you, please don't go anywhere, because I have the name of the winner for our social media quiz today. Earlier in this event, I asked you guys, how many days does it take to get the results of paper-based test IELTS? And the right answer is C, 13 days. And shout out to Agil Ranjos Wibowo from Facebook. Congratulations, Agil. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Easy. You can go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, click create an event, and collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletters for weekly event updates sent straight to your inbox. Alright everybody, I think that wraps up this episode. It has been really fun, but unfortunately we have to say goodbye for now. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at ATAmerica for event updates, fun content, and so much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again in our next program. Happy weekend, everybody.